I talk to friends and we talk about our experiences with being gay. And some of our stories are just brutal. But what I love, what I get to say, my story is, it doesn't stay there. That's not the period at the end of the story. That's not the closing chapter. Because for me, I met my wife. Why did Jodi take so long to come to my life? I have a theory that we were in spirit and I was like, are you ready? And she said yes. And I jumped down and she was like, oh, but wait. Oh, crap. And then she jumped. So I think she just jumped a little bit behind me in the portal, and that is the reason it took a little longer. But I also think we met later in life because it was the exact right time for us to meet. Before I met Jodi, I was like collecting pictures of women that I thought my wife would look like. I'm writing her poetry, like songs of love. You haven't arrived yet, but you will. Your coming is foretold. And I mean, I would drive in my car and I would reach down in the passenger seat and act like I was holding her hand. I would just breathe life into her. I was ready. I made a post on Facebook and she reached out and said it was about having a contented heart. And she reached out to me and basically just said, I would like to know how to have a contented heart. I really want to know. And I was like, that's not really a text. Like, that's not going to be like and I was like, so I just reached out and said, maybe we could go have coffee or something together. And she said, I would like that. And it was not a pretty day. There were no birds singing. There was no wind blowing or sun shining that day. That was not the day. It was raining so hard. It was basically swimming to go anywhere. And it was freezing. I had everything on that I could find in my closet that equated warmth because I'm not into cold anyway. So this was really troubling for me. This was a difficult day to get out. What am I doing? I don't know her. I literally am getting ready to text, I am so sorry. And just as I pick up my phone to text, I'm in the back on the sofa. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, here we go. So I get all my courage up because I'm shy. And I'm thinking the whole time as I'm going up the step, please don't fall on these steps, please. And I see Jodi coming toward me. And I literally stop breathing. And in the movies, how like everybody's like moving and then they just stop. The servers quit serving and the people having coffee stop sipping coffee and the whole room just stopped. And Jodi's coming toward me and I hear as clear as my voice right now, there you are. You're my wife. You're my wife. And she reaches out to hug me and I hug her and my soul is screaming, I love you, 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 I love you. So loud that I'm like, am I like really saying this out loud or is this just me? Because this is weird. And we sat and we talked for like an hour and a half and we left that day and I thought, how does this work? I've just met my wife, but how does this work? About 6 to 8 months later, we were getting married in Sedona by a shaman, by living water, by a stream, and exchanging our vows to each other. And that was the day for me. Beyond all reasonable doubt, I knew that God loved me. I knew that I was exactly who I was supposed to be. I knew that this life was better than anything I could have imagined as a kid. That little kid that loved God so much, what I discovered was that same God loved me too. And so now I'm just spending my life sharing that love. I never felt at home, never felt that until I met Jodi. And the moment that I met her, I was home. She and I are so connected. We finish each other's sentences. I can know what she's thinking before I just wait for her to say it. Like I know it's coming. And there it is. Because we're just that connected. There's no doubt in my mind that my first breath was just waiting and growing and learning so that I could be with my soulmate. Literally, that's such a worn out term, isn't it? But it's just the truth. The story's tragic if there's no Jodi. Without Jodi, it's just this sad story of this woman who lived to be older, and she worked it out. She worked out her gayness, bless her heart. But Jodi makes it the love story, the worth the wait, the fireworks and the glory and there's nothing that can take you down. It's all worth it. It is so worth it. And when I look at her, when I play music with her, when I sit across the table from her, when I feed the horses with her, when I look across the pasture, I just still cannot believe this is my life. I cannot believe that I have the capacity to love this much, this fully, this completely, this selflessly, this totality of wholeness. When I met Jodi, the whole circle came together. It was a full circle, first breath to last breath. It all made sense in that moment. And that is love. That is love. Love doesn't tell you you're unloved, you're hated, you're an abomination. Love feels like home. Love is, I know you. Where have you been? I've waited my whole life for you. I love you. That is love. And if it doesn't feel like that, then it's probably not love. It's something else. If it's not those things, if you're not authentically you, comfortable, and it doesn't feel like you've been homesick your whole life and you just found the front door, that is love. So many people that don't believe that being gay is right. I'm gonna be clear about that. They don't believe in it. But they're like, I want what you have. I want what you have. Wish I could find somebody to love me like that. Isn't that interesting? We were meant to be together, and you can't deny it. You even see it, and you're programmed not to. What? I also won the mother-in-law jackpot, because while my mom struggles, she just does. She just struggles with it. My mother-in-law is very religious. She's very Catholic, devout, and yet she has loved me as her own. There's an amazing moment between me and my mother-in-law. We were actually talking about the property that we live on. Her mom says to me, she's leaving, and I'm getting the gate for her on the way out. And she said, you know, God was looking out for Jodi the day she found this place. She pauses, she looks back up at me and she went, God was looking out for her the day she met you. I was just like, wow. And it was a moment I'll never forget. I'll always remember that moment. Because this is a woman who, again, is very religious. And her religion does not condone homosexuality. And yet, she's chosen love. She's been brave and courageous. You have to appreciate people who are trying. Like, for some people, and especially some cultures, being gay is really tough for them. It's really taboo. It's really wrong. My sister-in-law, her mother is from Thailand. She's always kind at the family events, very kind and loving, and goes in for the hug. But she just struggles to understand how gay marriage especially works. So the other night we were in an event and my sister-in-law is there and the family's there, and it's this really cool event that's going on. And our sister-in-law's mother is standing there, and Jodi introduces me as her wife. And the sister-in-law tells us later the next day, she was like, and my mother looked at me and quietly went, why she introduced her as wife? That her husband? And she was like, no, Mom, that's her wife because she's female. So it's not her husband, it's actually her wife. Oh. But she's trying. Like, she's trying to understand how this works. It's not always perfect. Sometimes it's sloppy and sometimes it's messy, but it's beautiful. I never thought that I would live to see gay marriage be legal. I just didn't think that was going to happen in my lifetime. I was hoping that generations followed would reap the benefit of us hanging in there and fighting the good fight. But I just didn't know that that was going to happen for me. And boy, it happened. And then not too long after it became legal, I met Jodi. So it was just like, whew, that's so awesome. It is so beautiful. And I just feel like we were like double ripped off by not being able to be married. Like, that's not fair. And you were just keeping that to yourselves. Life is about choices, and love heals us. And I think a good example of that is my parents are not on board with Jodi and I get married. And we discussed me calling them before we got married to share the news. And I finally just drew the conclusion. I was like, I don't want to. Because that day I want it to just be us. And I don't want chatter. I don't want that. I don't want to hear her voice in my head. I just don't. So let's just, the day after we get married, I'll call them. And she agreed. So that's the day after we get married, and take the deep breath. We were FaceTiming, actually. My mom answers. I'm like, hey. She's like, well, hey, girl, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. I was like, I got some news for you. She was like, are you pregnant? Ha, 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 ha. And I went, no, but I am married. Crickets. And I said, Jodi and I got married yesterday in Sedona. And she was like, well, that sounds permanent. And that's pretty much the conversation. She puts my dad on, he's like, well, I hope y'all are happy. I hope you find happiness. I was like, well, thank you, I appreciate that. And then that was pretty much the conversation. And so I told Jodi about it. And I was like, wow, that, not congratulations, not, oh, that sounds permanent. That's what my mom just said to me. So I go to my journal and I thought, it is permanent. And I write in my journal, my mom just blessed us today. She spoke permanence over this marriage. And I come into agreement with her that nothing, no person, no circumstance, no situation will ever separate us from each other. That we're as permanent as eternity. And I receive that blessing from my mother today. And I'm grateful for that blessing. And I receive it as a mantle over us, as a blanket around us. This is permanent. And that is how you change your life. That's how you change the story. That's how the story becomes your story and not their story. And that is how you find a contented heart.